vice chair, I'm sitting in his position. So, and then the staff that we have present, Laura Eckert is here. Laura is going to be doing some minute taking. In the back table, the staff table, Jillian Harris, she's the manager of environmental services. Dave Graham is here. Dave is the director of public works, and we have our CAO, Mike Kirkopoulos, and he's wearing two hats tonight, the CAO and his role as deputy clerk. Are there any declarations of interest from the committee members? None? And no delegations tonight. We have one piece of correspondence, the Active Transportation Advisory Committee minutes of April the 26th. Does any committee members have any comments or questions on that piece of correspondence?
Questions, Chair?
Yes.
Through you to Councillor Pachariva, how is is there registration for the cycling event? Or is it just show up on the Saturday morning?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's just a show-up event. So it's kind of metamorphosized from these first minutes of the cycling event that we were planning because we didn't get the buy-in from the NRP. There's a new staff sergeant take over for Sergeant Tim Carter, and Sergeant Neil Orlando, who was also instrumental, he's in St. Catharines, so they needed more time. So what we're going to do is, it's a community bike event, going to have this bike pump track thing, first of its kind in Niagara. We're still going to have a little ride, going to have bike safety, we're going to have a bike rodeo, going to have hamburgers, hot dogs, ice cream, you name it, face painting, and the big part, Councillor, is working with the BIA to be able to get that smoothie. So, yeah, which makes it a little hard. Makes it a little hard to figure out numbers, as Ms. Ecker knows from Touch a Truck. You know, doubling the numbers and so. But you know, it's our first foray. So
I see it out on social media.
Yes.
And, being promoted and. You know, you get the weather. I think we should have a great
it should be a winner.
Turnout.
Should be a winner.
I will be there with my bride and
on your bike.
On my bike. Yep.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. So yeah, look forward to it.
Fantastic.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor Pachariva that the minutes of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of April the 26th, 2018 be received. Any questions to the motion? Your pleasure. The motion is carried. Okay, and there's one short announcement before we carry on. We celebrate the Public Works Week, May 20th to the 26th. Through the week of the core work that Public Works contributes to the foundation of our community was shared. As such, a number of videos were developed to highlight the operations and investment of our Public Works Department within Lincoln. We're excited to show committee and members of the community an overall compilation of the power of Public Works, Enjoy the video to be uploaded. And this is, at this point, I would call on Jillian Harris. She's the manager of Community Environmental Services, will provide the presentation for us. Jillian, welcome. Whenever you're ready, Jillian.
We're having some technical difficulties.
So you do.
Public Works, we have a very diverse responsibility, and we're We're really responsible to maintain all the public infrastructure.
On the bus today because we have Public Works Week and we're identifying the work that our people do, our senior staff and our people out on the roads.
As it's to roads, drinking water, sewer systems, bridges, so all the core infrastructure.
Public Works is a very important, integral part of our community.
We have a mix of dump truck drivers, so they have responsibilities with snow plowing, hauling dirt, etc. We have heavy equipment operators, they run backhoes, loaders, graders, etc. And we have construction laborers, and they do many different jobs. Our water department, delivering safe drinking water to the public's tap. And we have 7 licensed operators. They're responsible for flushing the hydrants, repairing any leaks in the system, making sure we have clean water.
So early in our term, council invested and identified that roads, and traffic, and transportation were very important initiatives, and so it became a priority in our future focus. Since then, we've looked at the Transportation Master Plan and the ability to move people into the future in a vision that will be sustainable for our community as Lincoln grows.
Our road network in the community is just over 300 kilometers, and approximately 70% of that is rural roads, and then 30% is urban.
We're on the U-Link, which is our new pilot transit in the town of Lincoln.
One of the tasks we have right now is our community is going to be growing pretty significantly over the next 3 to 5 years, so that's something that we're really monitoring to try and be prepared for.
Well, the significance, obviously, is we've listened to our residents, and many people didn't have the mobility freedom to get around. So we felt that this was a very important initiative to listen to those residents and get our people out into the community where they couldn't normally get out. We've looked at active transportation, and we've identified a committee that will work with council to really be an advisory committee.
Active transportation is a large initiative that we're incorporating into all of our work, whether it's engineering, road maintenance, etc.
Council needs to continue to invest, but also at the same time balancing taxpayer flexibility and affordability.
We also have a large capital works program with our infrastructure. What that looks like is every year we upgrade an urban road to a curb and gutter road with sidewalks, improve the drainage, the underground servicing.
We're very hopeful it's going to be embraced by all because ultimately we're listening to the residents for mobility freedom, but one day we want to have a GO train here in Lincoln, and we want to express to the Metrolinx people that we're embracing transit in Lincoln.
Sorry, it's just taking a second to close down. Restart the program.
Jillian, is there anything else that you were going to add to that particular portion of the agenda, or are you going to move right into the presentation on the low-impact development?
No, unless there was anything else that anyone wanted to.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, so great video. Well done, Director Graham and the chair. Question as to how we're going to use that. How would we put that out to the market or put that out to our residents? through you, Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Kokopoulos?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to answer the councillor's question, ever since Public Works Week and leading into Public Works Week, we have been sharing it on our social media channels, on our social media feeds. I think we can look at sharing it with other stakeholders, putting it on our website, and so forth. But we have been tweeting it out and putting it on our Facebook site regularly through Public Works Week.
Good. I'm just thinking, we don't have much going on at the Fleming Center right now to run that through the TVs at the Fleming Center either. So it's kind of an empty hall. No, it's a very professionally done, slick, moves nicely, not too long. It's a nice piece, nicely done.
Some very, very talented people in front of the camera. Well done, absolutely well done. Anything else on comments on the video? Okay, Jillian, you prepared then to go through the second part?
Yes.
The low impact development report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today I just wanted to provide an overview of low impact development, or LIDs, for the use of stormwater management. So the agenda today will provide basically a 101 on what low impact development is, an overview of the existing best practice manual, then talk about downspout disconnection, rainwater harvesting, soak-away, infiltration trenches and chambers, bioretention, vegetated filter strips, permeable pavement, swales, and perforated pipe systems. So what is low-impact development? It's land planning and engineering design approach to manage stormwater runoff as part of green infrastructure. Ultimately, it means taking more of a sustainable approach to handling this surface water that every municipality has to deal with. The idea is to use nature as your model for how to handle everything and take those features that we would commonly find within nature in undeveloped areas and try to incorporate them within more of an urban setting. So there are multiple options for doing this. During the presentation, I'll be going over some of the key ones that could come about. The one thing to note as we're going through is that this has been kind of accepted across the different departments, not only Public Works. We're also working with planning and community services on items and trying to encourage developers to also consider some of these low impact developments on their developments as well. So a couple of years ago, the Credit Valley Conservation Authority and the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority developed a stormwater management planning and design guide. These are the two largest conservation authorities in Ontario. They're normally on the forefront of items when it comes to kind of protecting the environment, protecting our streams, and they understood that this was a major issue within the urban centers and how to deal with all of this stormwater, especially after some of the significant flooding that's been happening since 2008, especially 2015 and 2010. 2015 and 2017. So they did develop it in consultation with the MOECC and as well as Fisheries and Oceans Canada and the major GTA municipalities and also the development industry, because it's understood that you can try and come up with all of these options, but unless you're able to get those out there in the construction industry to get on board, it's very difficult to get any uptake on it. So the guide itself is pretty in-depth, but one of the handy things is it does include fact sheets that are on the end. Last night at the Public Information Center, we provided 2 of those sheets. So it was the downspout disconnection and the rainwater harvesting. It's just a handy kind of best practices, gives some information, some quick little images, and then the key things to really consider throughout it. So the town of Lincoln right now has adopted this as the understood best practice manual moving forward, and it's also right now the Niagara Regional Conservation Authority is also using this as their basis as they try to develop one themselves. So the first item to go over, and is kind of a bit of a hot topic right now within some areas, is downspout disconnection. So ultimately, why this comes on board is you have to find a way, when you direct the flow from roof downspouts away from your sewers themselves and they're onto ground, you do have to look at ways to deal with this additional water that you're dealing with. So ultimately, you have to get it away to a pervious area or a storage location, and you want to prevent it from not only entering the storm or sanitary sewer systems, but also prevent it from getting away from the homes themselves and then the neighbors' homes as well. So a simple disconnection is kind of shown in this area. It's just going to grade, and in order to accompany that, you need a 5-meter distance away from the house leading to a pervious area for proper drainage. All of these options here, which we'll be going over as well within rain barrels, soakaway pits, planters, bioretention, all of those items, you need to consider your site layout. So do you have existing swales? Do you have low spots? Do you have great soil, horrible soil, kind of those ideas. Water table, obviously it's going to be an issue within certain parts of town of Lincoln. And then what maintenance is going to be involved with whatever option you're going forward. And ultimately there's that standing water and ponding that no one really wants to have within their properties. So one way to deal with this standing water is to look at rainwater harvesting. It's becoming more and more popular. It has not only a benefit of dealing with that unwanted water entering our systems, but it also helps cut down on the overall water usage as well that some people will have for watering their gardens or their lawns over the course of the summers. So ultimately, it's the process of intercepting, conveying, or storing rainwater for future use. It could be anything from the size of this barrel here. You could look at smaller barrels. Some people even go to the point of including large systems or larger buried tanks as well, and having a pump system to provide that. So again, considerations are your overall catchment area. If you have a large roof, you're obviously going to need a larger storage portion, available space within the area where your existing downspouts are coming down, soil, because ultimately you're still going to have, if you have a heavy rain event, you are going to have some overflow from the containers themselves, but it'll be minimal compared to it. Standing water mosquitoes, one thing to note is most rain barrels now, they have a net that is included with them to block kind of mosquitoes from that point, so the standing water isn't as much of an issue. And then wherever you do have water stored within an area, there is always child safety that you have to consider, and then setbacks to be able to get around the barrels that are there themselves, or if you're putting in the buried tanks, that you're abiding by all the planning setbacks. So going into another option that you can have, and it's kind of coming along, is soak-away infiltration trenches or chambers. One easy way to think about is this is kind of your French drain that you'd be looking at. That's kind of one of the more common terms for it. So it's an open cut area. You line it with a filter cloth so that stops some of the rocks getting down into your soils, especially if you have some nice clay. And then you fill it with a clear granular stone, and that gives you some space in between each stones that allow the water to sit in. And then it allows any rainwater to go down into these surfaces. Typically, you'll see down at the bottom, there's normally a pipe that's in there. It will be the perforated pipe. It's like your weeping tile that you would install, and that allows water to continue draining as well. The one nice thing is it does allow it to naturally infiltrate into the soil, but also providing some storage in the process as well. So it can be designed just as a general area within your property for it to drain into. You can have it coming from downspouts as well. You can put pipes into the area to receive. It's been in some past designs that I've done at wells when you have to blow off a portion of the well, that water will go into items like this, and then it naturally disperses rather than having that large amount of standing water or pooling. Because you are digging down into the area and you're going a bit closer to that water table without as much of that natural filtration that you would have in soil, you do have to take into account wellhead protection. So are you near an aquifer where someone is taking their drinking water from? Options like that, because in the event if there is a spill, it's just one thing to take into consideration. Also, you have to think about the soils that you have around. Again, if you have a sand, it's going to be great for this to disperse. If you have a clay, it's going to be a bit more difficult, but then you do have some of your storage in there. Again, setbacks from buildings, and then the drainage area to consider your overall size. Bioretention is one that's great for in larger areas and parks and items like that. So you can have a bit of a stream or a swell coming down, and then it allows for kind of a garden area or a more of like a vegetated area that you can have in. There will be a bit of pooling water on the top of the actual planted area, but the idea is that the vegetation that you put in there are water-loving plants, so they're going to be sucking up as much water as possible. Clover is one of them. It's not as invasive as bulrushes. Bulrushes are another big sucker, but there's a lot of other shrubs that you can take into consideration that also meet the needs of being excellent water absorbers, but being able to survive in a bit more of a marshy-like area. Because of these plants, even with the standing water, you do eliminate some of the concern with mosquitoes and other items like that. Again, because you are digging down and changing up, having that gravel bed where areas can pour into, and a bit of a soil base that's better for holding it. This would be more like a sand soil that would be in there. That you do have to consider your wellhead protection, site characteristics of how are you getting the water to this area to kind of have your area for the water to pool in the bioretention area. And then overhead wires, primarily because of construction matters and getting in that, and then the overall setbacks from building. You wouldn't want to put one of these right beside a building for concerns of getting into your foundation. In line with this is vegetated filter strips. So these are typically in areas where you're going to have more of a ledge going down. So you'll have a straight surface or a parking lot. A lot of the times you'll see they've built up the parking lot so that on the side you have that slope that you have to deal with. So these vegetated filter strips allow you to absorb water, to slow down the water as it's traveling down, to eliminate erosion. And then also, again, the plants themselves are really absorbing a lot of that moisture and helping you deal with that water. That's a problem as well. So again, site layout or topography, the overall space that you have to consider the flow path. It's not, of any benefit if you're putting a vegetative filter strip in an area where your runoff's not happening. And then you have to consider the soils, because you might have to improve it for the 18-inch top layer. And then again, the water table, because if your water table is too high, it's not going to have the benefit that you're considering. The next one is the one where we're working closely with community services right now, and it's also Mike's favorite topic right now after our I&I last night, is our permeable pavement, paving stones and concrete. I actually have some examples of this bottom image right here. It's hydropavers. So what it's similar to pavement or concrete, but there are small little holes within the pavers themselves that allow water to flow through. The one advancement that we have here, it doesn't require as much maintenance as some of the previous generations of permeable pavement or concrete. So it does allow storage. It eliminates the need to, when you do your calculations for overall surface area with permeable surfaces, you can calculate it just like an existing field or green space. You wouldn't have to consider having pavement or items like that. Typically, these are used in low traffic areas, mostly because of how they're designed. If you're having high speed or high traffic, a little bit of the rubber comes off the tires. So you'd want it in parking lots are great, emergency lanes that we have, bike paths, sidewalks. If one of the areas that we're looking and considering it is in Jordan Village, in some of those proposed developments there. Actually, the museum, we're looking at using these as a pilot project as well for the courtyard and the parking lot themselves. So I'll pass around a sample of each one, and I'll actually show one of the benefits of it as well. So I'm going to use this one because it's the largest one. Yeah. Yeah. And then so they do have some water on them. So how they work.
Thanks. Oh,
So these specific ones are made in a factory. They were developed a joint collaboration between China and Japan. So the actual areas where they have been installed have similar climates. So they've experienced about a decade in China and Japan. They've been in Canada for 2 years. It's just picking up within Guelph. Toronto is really coming on board in the waterfront. Also, it is going to be installed in a couple of their parks as well. They've picked it up again for bike paths and areas like that. And one of the benefits is that it actually absorbs the water itself. So you can pour the water on, and there's no pooling on top. So you can see, yeah, so it's kind of magic, so you can just turn it over. So what happens is that it stores that small amount of water. Once it becomes fully saturated, it goes down into the bedding. The nice thing is it's, if you were to go to Home Depot and you were buying one of those pavers, it's actually only, sounds extreme, but it's also a typical Home Depot paver. If you were going, obviously you'd be looking at more industrial uses in outside of residential, but it's actually around $8.50 a square foot. The bedding would be the same bedding that you would be doing if you were putting in pavement, if you were putting in other any other stones that were non-porous. So the overall increase to capital cost is not that great, but there's the benefit that you don't have to provide the storage of water that would typically you'd have to take into consideration if you were looking at a non-porous topic. The other thing is that these tops are completely baked in. And so the color, you don't have to deal with the color aspect. And in parking lots, you're starting to see that they're even making the painted symbols that you would have, or the parking lines. You can do that within the blocks as well, and then there's no need for that maintenance. And then typical maintenance for the newer technology that's coming out is literally just doing a sweeper like we would be doing on a road anyways. If there was snow, you would just raise the blade a bit and you would have a slight layer of snow, but besides that, it's meets all the accessibility requirements and items like that. So this permeable pavement, paving stone and concrete is advancing rapidly every year. It's improving in its technology. So next is enhanced grass swales, kind of a fancy updated version of a big ditch. Yep. So the idea is you would keep it over vegetated. So similar to what we have within some of the more rural areas, you do a more robust vegetation within it, not straight dirt. And the idea, again, it slows down the water as it's going. It helps treat the water, so it takes out any fine particles or items like that. And then the end receiving water body is getting cleaner water and at a more reasonable rate so that you're not getting erosion within the areas. Obviously, if you're digging something, proximity to utilities, and then you want it to size it properly, so you're taking into account the drainage area, the runoff volumes, and then the overall space requirements that you have. And then lastly, it's kind of an addition. It's similar to a French drain, but just installing a perforated pipe system and having, you would just have a stone trench at the bottom of it, which the bedding. You wouldn't have it on top, similar to what would be in a French drain. And you can put these within boulevards, and then you'd have your same cover that you'd have in a storm system, but it would go down to a perforated pipe and disperse out. You'd still carry some water, but it wouldn't be as much as you would see in a typical storm sewer, but you would need the space in the right-of-way or in the boulevard, and you would want to use a slightly shallower grass swale as well to help out with the overall quality of the water. So any questions, comments?
Oh, that's it. Thanks very much. Questions? Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jillian, fantastic. This brings me back to my geology days, and when we were building, so, and I didn't mean to say ditch, but I got excited. So, and I'm so happy that Director Graham and I talked today about embracing new technologies. Maybe we don't have to be first, but we sure as heck can't be last. And I mean, this permeable paving stones, I mean, we were beating that drum when we built the Fleming Center that we wanted a permeable parking lot and the walkway out in front to help, mitigate storm runoff. If we could somehow embed this into our policies for doing, active transportation, bike paths, and the Prudhome's development. I mean, there's so many opportunities to use this stuff, and I appreciate the presentation because, if we have these rainfall events of great magnitude, lucky that we were spared today, that it went north of Burlington, but it had quite a bit of havoc. But, if we don't adapt and we don't change, then you're going to get the same result. So I like all this. And the other thing was, and one of my pet peeves, the vegetated filter strips, and also the enhanced grass swales. We could also use those in a rural setting to stop the soil erosion. And then again, they could have a double impact as acting as, Director Graham, living snow fence.
Councillor McPherson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, very, very informative. Lots of nice options. I just think about what we've got coming at us in the next, 3 to 5 years, and the opportunity is in front of us. It's, it's not something that, we can go back and redo roads necessarily or redo parking lots, but we've got a significant build coming. So it sounds like it's expensive. For the developers, it's probably going to be a cost to them, but, to think about Prudhome's or Lausanne's project or Cherry Heights and to have that thing completely water-free, to be draining properly, I know we're a long way down the road with a couple of the projects, but I guess the question I would have is, this is all great, but how do we get it going? How do we get projects with some of these things in them moving along? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So one positive thing is I've actually been talking with Phelps, and they are considering utilizing this within their one development in Jordan Village as well, because they're running into the same problem that we have at the museum that's going in for stormwater management. Where it comes into play and the capital cost is large, there's an offset because they're now the total amount of storage that they have to have goes down. So the size of the pond that they might have to go in goes down, or maybe even eliminated in some cases. So that's where they get they do the cost analysis, and while it does have a higher cost than just throwing in a sidewalk or throwing in one type of driveway or parking lot in an option, they see the benefit that, oh, I might not have to have a pond, or it's going to be smaller, I can throw another house there. So that's where they typically where the developers see the benefit of it. And in conversations with Phelps last night and even again today regarding this, they are on board. Markham is one of the first areas where the developers are actually starting to utilize this. I recommended that Phelps get the contact of the developers in Markham and reach out to see how they were preparing their applications, because based off of the suppliers, the one developer in Markham actually fully eliminated the need for a storage pond. So just kind of what can be done and what calculations need to get brought forward for them, and it does work out to a benefit to the developers. And I think that as we start to talk with them, and planning's aware of it as well, that we can start putting these options in. Unfortunately, right now with how we can't put it in roadways where we're having major traffic. We could put them in cul-de-sacs and things like that, but further, anything greater than that right now we can't. But again, just in the past 5 years, how far this technology has come along, it's something moving forward. On our side, our staff are going through a series of training being put on by CVC and TRCA, identifying options within, when we're doing our urban upgrades, how can we look at our boulevards or on the right-of-way outside of the actual road itself, what can we incorporate to put that into play? So actually one of our first training sessions is tomorrow, and there's a series of 6 that we'll be looking at, and there are guidance manuals as well for the staff.
Yeah, I just, I think about the discussion we had last night down there in Jordan, and the water challenge that's there, the water table being what it is. And to me, it's engaging with Phelps, thinking about the Red Maple development. And, listening to some of the residents who are saying there's virtually a river running underneath the ground. I don't know if that to be true, but they all got sump pumps going 24/7, so to a Phelps development that's going in there, to me, it'd almost be, Mr. Phelps, this is part of the expectation is you will have this in this development, that type of approach, so that, it takes care. I mean, that's magical. I mean, it's like I'm at the CNE, and then all of a sudden the water disappears, right? So, but seriously, it's the technology is fat, and we are in a community that has a water problem. It's got the escarpment, and it all flows downhill, and we're all in it, right? So, this is an exciting topic. The challenge that we've all got is happen. How do we proceed and get things, have this top of mind when we are putting in a new road, and maybe it's not ready yet. Maybe the technology's not there yet, but if we're going to do an urbanized road in a lower traffic area, is this a consideration, when we do that for sidewalks, for even for the road pavement, and things like that. So I think this is very exciting stuff. But with technology, there's always that challenge of how do you make it happen? Yes. So just some thoughts around that.
Yeah, good. Anything else? Something else?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Actually, through you to Jillian. And you know what? And I like the idea of trying to use it at the museum. I think we need to be, in order to get the buy-in from the development community, we need to be leaders in it. So, I mean, if we can use this at Conkle Creek, on the multi-use trail there, and I'm just now my mind starts spinning. Catwalks, all of those things, all of those interconnectivities, and like you say, if you're able to go to a developer with a cost-benefit analysis to say, okay, well, you've got to spend, $2 million in a storm retention pond, or you put in $1 million worth of these upgrades, and you can build 6 houses at $950,000 a house, do the math. And then all of a sudden, and I think, too, I think, and unfortunately, we're bound by the green belt, so our usable land is quickly dwindling, but this would have been a great selling feature, you know, a few years ago, to be able to say, hey, come in and build in our town. We've got some innovative, creative ways to do things. And again, you know, the one swale, or not the swale, but the bio pond, like, rather than that old just fenced pond with water, innovative ways to do things. So I love it.
It's not too late. It's not too
No, but Chairman, I know it's not too late.
We're not going to have another Prudhoms, or maybe not another, you know, Lausanne where we got 400 homes, but you're going to have the red maples. You're going to have.
Oh, no,
you
no, I know,
little-
and maybe we
little
can still get them
pockets.
because they're, you
One
know.
at a time, please.
You're going to have, you know, maybe Vineland Growers is going to go somewhere else, and you're going to have that piece. So you're going to have all these little pieces within the urban boundary that will add up to something over time. So I think it is worth seriously talking about it, and getting maybe some kind of approach. I don't know if it's a bylaw, but some kind of approach with the developers that requires them to, if you're going to build in our town, this is what, we have issues, and this is the way we respond to the issues.
And just a couple of comments from myself. Is there a potential problem with this in that when we have a freeze thaw, so when the snow melts and goes into the block and then it freezes, would this become slippery, and would it turn to ice within the structure? And is that a problem?
From my understanding, talking with the supplier and some of the kind of images that they've shown, is that the snow sits on top, so it allows, you don't get the ice buildup like you would on a normal road because you don't get the water pooling on top and then freezing. In regards to the one concern with freeze thaws as well, with how items shift, ultimately it's in the bedding. So if you make it's only as good as your bedding is in the end, just like with sidewalks or any other option. As long as you build it to what is to code or what is recommended in the drawings, you have that. But these won't become slippery like you would in a regular parking lot because they do absorb that water itself. So you'll just have snow sitting on top. As the snow starts to melt, that starts to go into the stone as well.
Is there a private use for this, like a private driveway?
Yes, that's actually how they got their start in Ontario, was doing driveways, or in North America actually doing driveways within areas of California, Florida, and then more recently Guelph has had a huge uptake as well. Guelph has had some water issues as well, and they found that a lot of people are starting to put them in their driveways. And I'm not going to lie, one of the reasons I came across them was because I live in Winona, I have the clay as well, and we want to put in a patio, but that's how to deal with the water and not pulling around it. And that was one of the ways that I came across this company as well, kind of joint while doing this research. But there is a big public uptake that they're starting to see. It's actually been more on board with people that are embracing, you see it, people that embrace the solar technology and items like that, they're starting to install these as well to deal with those in the area. So it is a possibility, and it might be something that residents look at.
That's good. And I agree with what the other councillors had to say, and I think that we have the opportunity, since we are doing the museum, that if we want others to do this kind of thing on their projects, then we lead by example. That if we can use it and show that it works and that is a benefit, then I think that's one of the real solid steps forward in this technology. That's great. Thanks very much. Anything else? Okay, I have a motion moved by one scribble and seconded by a second scribble. Yeah, there's a piece scribble. It's moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor McPherson that the presentation be received. Any questions to the motion? In favor? Thank you. It's carried. Okay, right into reports. The first one, PW 1817 downspout disconnecting pilot project. Jillian, this is you again. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if there's any question. We did discuss this a bit last night at the Public Information Center, just moving forward within a pilot program in Jordan Station and Camden.
Okay. We've got the report. Any questions to the report, Councillor?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Jillian, thanks for putting in the town properties, because when we discussed that at last committee, you know, I appreciate you for doing that. Any thought, and again, I mean, it's well, $12,500 to giving these out. I know other municipalities give the rain barrels out, and if there's an issue, I'm thinking if there's an issue in Jordan and we really want the buy-in, what if we just say, here you go? Just, okay.
I think it's covered in the motion, is it not?
Okay.
So to Councillor Patriva's comment, yeah, that last night we had a little scrum after and felt as though it is very important that this project is successful and that we don't have any people not wanting to do it because of a nominal cost to do it. So we thought we should put an extra few $1,000 into the motion here tonight, and I think I saw it handwritten there at the bottom. So you're bang on, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? All right. Okay, there's a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor Patriva. That report PW 1817 downspout disconnection pilot project, Jordan Station in Camden, received as information, and that Public Works be authorized to initiate the downspout disconnection pilot project, and that Public Works be authorized to set aside a $10,000 allowance to assist residents that need assistance as part of the downspout disconnection pilot project program. Okay, does that fit in with what you were saying about the additional help to the residents?
So through you to the CAOs, you think that would cover the $25 that the residents would pay?
Was it a $10,000 allowance?
In other words, would we now be handing out on this pilot project for the 65 homes in Jordan and 28 or so in Camden, would we take care of the barrels or just reduce the cost?
Through Mr. Chairman, and I think there's a few of us that probably want to jump in on it. I think initially we had set aside the $10,000 because, as you recall last night, some of the comments we heard around folks were, how does the disconnect happen? I think the lesser issue that we heard last night at least was around the rain barrel, and more was maybe some assistance potentially around those that need some assistance with the disconnection piece. And so we had set aside $10,000. I think you're correct. If everybody was to accept the program and partake in the program, then we're probably looking a little bit more money. We've set aside the $10,000 or identified $10,000 as that seed money that we would fund through our rate budget, but definitely something that we can look at increasing should we need to increase it as part of the pilot. I think we wanted to demonstrate that we're willing to assist our residents in our community. Should we need to find an additional few thousand, we can either come back to council or we can amend the motion to suggest that it's $10,000 at this particular point in time and or additional monies we find within the budget, but we can also take that as direction. I don't know if either Jillian and or Dave have anything to add.
Dave?
Through Mr. Chairman, just to add on to Mike's comments, the report is currently too, you would still be asking the residents to pay $25 towards a barrel. And then we're also suggesting that the 10,000 seed money, should anybody need help with connecting it to their downspout. That's just the way it is right now. I don't know if committee has any other thoughts about the $25, but that's the way it stands currently, that you'll still be asking for $25 from the residents.
Mr. Chair, so I can see how we would offset costs from a purchase of a barrel standpoint. How would we offset the costs, not necessarily to everybody, for the installation? How does that work? Is there an application that's made, or is there?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the idea right now would be that we'd have to develop how one would get access to the $10,000 seed fund to assist with the connection of the rain barrel. But we would be looking at something similar to what you had mentioned of an application to ask for assistance with the installation. We will be holding another public information center in September before the event to show how to disconnect, how to set up your rain barrel, maintenance issues during the winter, because you do have to disconnect the rain barrels during the winter, and items like that, and provide materials to assist the majority of people with the disconnect. It would just be the limited few that would need assistance.
Okay.
Because the motion is quite clear, that there's $10,000 there, but this $10,000 is not going towards the purchase of the barrels. It is for the connect to cut the eavesdroppers at where it needs to be cut, and elbows put on, or whatever needs to be done.
I'm supportive of it. I'm just, okay. Yeah, if we can work through that, that'd be great.
Okay. JD?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Through you. And because we're reducing the inflow, so this would be wastewater. So it would come from the wastewater levy. Like, we can leave $10,000 there. And again, if we do a cost-benefit analysis of the amount of water we're taking out of the system, I mean, maybe we're going to get to a point where we want to give them the barrel and we want to help them with a connection, because it's probably thousands of dollars that we're not going to have to treat. So we run that. I think we get everyone on board. And then that's a thing, too, that we can run as a pilot and go to the other areas that we already did the I&I. I mean, it's nickel and dimes we're talking here. So I think in the big picture, we do it.
Yeah. Mike?
Through Mr. Chairman, I think the councillor nailed it. I mean, this will be something that we are going to roll out beyond just Jordan right now. We've got some issues in Jordan and Camden, and we're trying to address them. And I agree with you. When we look at the health of our water and wastewater reserves and our budgets, the amount, the benefit to us is incredibly nominal. We wanted to identify some seed money, go back out to the community. This will be a very iterative process. I think for those of us that saw Jillian's presentation and the interaction our staff had yesterday, we will work with the community as best we can. If more monies are required, we'll find those additional monies, but you're right, what we're going to save far outweighs and exceeds what we're spending, even if we do supplement and support to a greater extent. But I think we wanted to have this indication that council's got a commitment and is willing to assist residents.
So in other words, it's just a drop bucket. Yeah.
No pun intended.
Okay, anything else to the motion? Your pleasure on the motion.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Okay, thank you very much, Jillian. It's been a pleasure. The second report on the agenda is PW 1818, Public Works Quarterly Project. Dave, this is yours, right?
Yes. Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just provided committee with our quarterly update on all of our projects and programs. Just a couple general comments. There's a lot of work underway. We're making good progress with our capital programs, our operational programs. Our road rehab program is currently underway. Academy Street is progressing well. The other one I wanted to highlight, Moyer Road, that was the culvert replacement project. We actually ended up getting that done ahead of schedule and getting the road opened up a couple weeks ago, really being sensitive to the road closure impacts to Vineland Estates. So we're happy to see that one is being completed. The other one, Charles Street Storm Sewer System Diversion, we're starting that next week. The Conkle Creek project, phase 1 in Beansville here is moving along well. We're hoping to have that done end of July, a month earlier than anticipated, and likely coming back in the fall to do all of the planting works, given the summer conditions right now are not a good time to do planting. Yeah, those are a few of the large capital projects, and our operational programs are all moving along as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions of Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, give credit where credit is due. Mr. Director, you do an outstanding job of communicating what is going on in this department. You know, it's just, you know, with the newsletters and with this type of update, it's, I mean, you lead the way as far as I'm concerned in the town hall, you know, as far as getting us and the residents, you know, because this is public information on what's going on. So, you know, kudos to you and your team. Again, you know what, and it sparks something in me, maybe a little bit off topic, but as we look at our future focus, and there's various bullets in our future focus, and if we had this lined up with focus, not just for public works, but for communication and for all of the areas, economic development, and we just went, okay, here was the objective, here's what we did, boom, 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 you know, right through the whole future focus. I'm sure we could cover 95% of that thing. So this is excellent, David and Laura and all your group there, and congrats to you.
Anything else? Well, I agree with it, exactly what you've said, Paul. And the other plus to this is the format that is used. It is so easy to read, so easy to follow. It is really good stuff. Yeah. Thanks very much, Dave. Much appreciated. Okay. Yes, question?
Yeah, one question, Mr. Chairman, through you. Mr. Graham, project number 24, the Go Bus Stop Sidewalk at AT. Mr. Neubauer was saying that there was some issues with that based on design and slope and change in topography there. How are we making out on that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so as an update, I mean, this is a very high-profile project. I mean, we want to get this sidewalk constructed. A couple constraints that we're working through right now. The MTO, they're doing expansion works in the parking lot with the electric charging stations, and they're doing some more work. So number one, we first have to wait until all that work is completed. That's supposed to be completed soon. The other issue is we're working with the Niagara region. We're going to be installing a sidewalk along the service road, so we're trying to get the Niagara region's approval and cooperation on how that looks with our design, so we're trying to finalize that. That's where we are right now, is basically trying to get all the approvals from the other agencies so we can be in a position to get this tendered.
Okay.
And just as a follow, I mean, I've got to echo your comments and Councilor McPherson's comments. Like this is gold. And that video earlier, like, we have got to get this stuff up on the website. whether it's a rotating, little kaleidoscope of the departments. Counselor, I love your idea of, this is what we said we're going to do, this is what we did. Like, not everyone's on social media, and not everyone reads the paper, and with the local paper, the hit and miss of the one on the delivery, I mean, we've got delivery once in 6 weeks, so there's got to be other ways that we got to keep pounding away at the message, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else, Paul?
No, it's just, it's fantastic. It is, like the counselor says, it's gold. And I particularly like the dashboard. I mean, the dashboard is a one-sheet summary that, means a lot.
Mike?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just on that, I mean, I think council will be happy to see that we are going to take that dashboard approach, and you'll be seeing that. We've piloted it with Public Works, but you'll be seeing that across all departments, and very much so. I've already sent a message to staff when I come back with that kind of summary report as it relates to the future focus document, doing it in this exact format. So I appreciate your comments, Councillor.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, a motion moved by Councillor Patriva, seconded by Councillor McPherson, that report PW 1818 Public Works Quarterly Project and Program Status Update be received as information. Any questions to the motion? In favor? Motion is carried. Okay, that's the end of the reports. We can go into council inquiries. Any, Councilor McPherson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last night, I was approached and asked about a debenture that was put in place by the town for Camden. I don't know how many years ago. And question was, is it done? And if, in fact, it is done, do we need to notify the residents of Camden that we're finished?
In reference to the sewer work?
Yeah, I believe it was. I believe it was, yeah.
That's quite a while ago. It should be, anyhow.
I didn't know anything about it, so, and I did talk to Director Graham briefly about it and told him I would talk to Angela today, and I did not, but I did want to raise it to make sure it gets on the inquiry, so that if there is something that we should be doing to close that out and let those residents know that they're no longer on the hook for that, that's the right thing to do,
Okay.
in my mind. Thank you.
Can we leave that with you, Mike? Yeah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely.
Okay. JD?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions or a couple comments, and again, on moving forward on that communication piece and that. When we're doing street sweeping and roadside mowing, might those be things too that we want to put up on these rotators here to say, okay, if you live in neighborhood X, we're going to do your road? Because invariably you get those calls, well, the street sweeper came and I didn't know, and I could have parked it in the driveway. And then, and the same with the roadside mowing. On some of the railroads, like I'm thinking Lincoln Avenue, cars are parked there. Like, if they know that's happening, they can help facilitate the execution of that event. So, I mean, knowledge is king, and you wanna let the people know what we're doing, and if we were able to put that up there on some way, shape, or form, or door hangers, I mean, that's costly, and again, it's a lot of manpower, but just your thoughts on that. Again, to, those things that happen annually.
Dave?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, a great suggestion. I mean, we really would ideally want to get to that point. I know we're trying to provide some information. We're mowing in the northwest quadrant of town versus, but we would like to refine it even further. Sometimes you get into challenges where it's weather dependent, equipment issues, staffing issues, and we don't want to say we're going to be on your street and then we don't get there for whatever reason, but yeah, we are trying to work to get it closer so we can communicate that more accurately, yeah.
Anything else? No? Are there any notices of motion? Any announcements? No closed session? Okay, I will officially adjourn the meeting at 8:06.